Good evening and welcome to the first Scholars Informational Webinar for students admitted to the University of Maryland in fall 2021 and invited to College Park Scholars. My name is Dave Eubanks. I'm the Associate Director of College Park Scholars, and we're eager to give you a sense of what Scholars is and answer some of your questions. The first thing to say is our goal is to help you understand what Scholars is. And Scholars is a complicated thing. It's been around for a long time. I've been with it for 10 years, and some days I'm still trying to figure out exactly what it is. The first thing to do, and this is going to seem awfully obvious, but is to visit our website. I'm sure a lot of you have done that already, but I want to make sure that you see when you go to the Scholars page, you can learn about all of our 12 programs, the student experience, a little bit about our impact and our history. But I want to make sure that you see at the top right here, there's a link for Scholars. We're going to go ahead and call you all Scholars. You're going to click that, and right here is a little area for invited students. That's what you are right now. That is a good place to check to make sure that you understand what's next, that you have a good sense of how to ask questions of Scholars and kind of get your bearings. So go to our homepage, go to For Scholars, and click on Invited Students. Now, it is our hope that in a couple of months, you will click on Incoming Students, and then in a few more months, in the fall, you'll click on Current Students. But this is where to go right now for your basic information about Scholars. The other thing I want to make sure everyone understands is what's called the Program Preference Form. Now, you should have already heard about this in a letter from the Executive Director of Scholars, but it's important to say that we've invited you to College Park Scholars, and we're excited about you joining us. But we need to know which of our 12 programs you're most interested in. The program preference form is available through your TERP application portal. So this is where you're going to manage all of your interaction with the university right now. That preference form is not a commitment to Maryland. This is a way for you to tell us what your preferences are among our 12 programs. It's painless. You're just going to go in and put the top few in order of preference and give us a sentence or two about why that's interesting to you. You have a couple of weeks to continue to learn about the programs beginning tonight, but we need that completed by Monday, the 22nd. If we don't have a completed form, we don't know where to put you. So it's important that we get that sooner than later. I am fairly confident that you can complete it multiple times, but go ahead and once you have some sense of what programs have the most appeal, submit that for us. I want to say very quickly who is on our panel tonight. We'll take a little more time in a moment for deeper introductions, but the Executive Director of College Park Scholars, Professor Mary Lee Lindeman, is with us. As I said, I'm Dave Eubanks. I'm the Associate Director, and that's a picture of me back when I was getting haircuts on a regular basis. I'm very excited to introduce you to our three student panelists. Javi, Saxon, and Sierra are all either currently in a Scholars program, or I believe in the case of Sierra, have just finished their 2 years in Scholars. We'll come back and meet them in a moment. The next thing is we have decided to avail ourselves of Zoom and host what we're thinking of as virtual drop-in hours, starting on Monday the 8th and going through February 18th. You'll see here the shortened link for that is go.umd.edu/scholars-drop-in. And the idea here is to give you a chance to stop by and ask us questions that are maybe particular to your case, to chat with some scholars, to talk to staff. There will be staff and scholars on all of these. Again, at the beginning on the 8th through the 18th. These are about 45 minutes long each. We want to make sure that the people we invited are the people that we're inviting to these, so do make sure to go in and register for them when you're able. That said, we are always eager to talk to you. You'll see here on the left, our email address is askcpscholars@umd.edu. Our phone number is 301-314-2777. We are answering and responding to those regularly and again, enthusiastically. So never hesitate to write or call as often as you'd like. On the right-hand side, these are our social media handles. We are lively on social media. We'll make a lot of announcements about events and programming.
We'll give you an opportunity to meet current scholars and read profiles. So you want to make sure to follow us on Facebook at College Park Scholars, on Instagram at UM_scholars, and Twitter, same handle, UM_scholars. So go ahead and join us if you haven't already. I do want to point out that we're recording this primarily because we want to be able to post it on YouTube. So our intent is to do that tomorrow. So if there's anything we move through kind of quickly, you'll be able to go back and watch it again. The other thing to say as we make our way back to our panelists is we're going to use the Q&A function and not the chat tonight. I see we've got 27 and counting questions already, and the few that I saw are very good. So make sure to enter your questions in the Q&A. I will try to moderate and direct those to panelists. We also have a number of members of staff who are monitoring and may type a response to you. But if you have questions for us, go ahead and start typing them into the Q&A. All right? That's it. That's what I've got. So now let's listen to some more interesting people for a little while. First thing I'm going to do is turn off my screen share, and I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director, Professor Mary Lee Lindeman. Mary Lee, take it away.
Thank you, Dave. And I hope everybody was able to hear the sound of Dave Eubank's cat in the background as he spoke. I did. Good evening, everybody. It is such a pleasure to meet our first batch of future Terps and future scholars. Really excited to have the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you this evening, answer some questions that I'm sure that you've got, and also simply to congratulate you on your success in being admitted to the University of Maryland and invited into College Park Scholars. Also to commend you for persisting in this whole strange process under the challenging, bizarre circumstances of the pandemic. I know it's a really difficult time. We appreciate you for hanging in with your education and your college search. And please know that we are here to help you in any way that we can as you make your way through the decision-making process, okay? We've got a wonderful team of people and students who I always say are our best advocates and explainers for helping prospective students and families to understand what Scholars is and the wonderful ways in which it can enhance your experience at the University of Maryland. I do want to give a shout out to a good friend of Scholars, Janae Cruz from the Office of Orientation, for helping us with some of the logistical and sharing her webinar license this evening. Janae, of course, is one of the many Scholars alums who are on campus, and it's always a pleasure to see her and to work with her. Okay, I just want to spend a couple of minutes sort of giving you the view from 30,000 feet of what College Park Scholars is. Dave is right. It's kind of a unique and weird and unwieldy organization, but I'm hoping that I can say a few things that will help pin it down for you in ways that can help you understand, again, how it could enhance your experience here at Maryland. A short answer to what College Park Scholars is to say that it's a group of living learning programs for academically talented freshmen and sophomores. Again, congratulations on your invitation. It is a selective process. You're invited into Scholars as part of the university's admissions process. And we look for students who can basically bring three things into the Scholars community. We look for evidence of academic success and academic potential. Two, we look for students who have a broad range of interests, because you'll notice we have 12 different programs. All of them are interdisciplinary in nature, right? None of them are tied to particular majors. So we often tell students to use their Scholars program experience as an opportunity to sort of think outside the box of the major, to pursue interests that perhaps complement their majors or things that they were interested in high school and just didn't have the opportunity to pursue. So we want students who are curious about the world and interested in looking at questions from a broad variety of perspectives, because that's the kind of things that all 12 of our programs, for all of their differences, do. The third thing we look for is an indication that a student is interested in the kind of conscientious community that College Park Scholars is interested in building with and offering to its students. We're interested in diversity in all forms, from the academic to the sort of regional to the demographic to the, all shapes and sizes of diversity are of interest to us in College Park Scholars. And we want to know that you'll be interested in the kind of community service activities, civic engagement activities, community building activities that are part and parcel of what we do on a daily basis. So as I said, it's a group of living learning programs. We have 5 residence halls in the Cambridge community on the north side of the University of Maryland campus. We have a classroom building at the center of that community where many of our scholars courses are held. Our students in the same program tend to live on floors that have students from their programs. So there are opportunities, many opportunities to get to know people outside the classroom around the clock. And we're hopeful, of course, that come fall, we'll have more of our students back on campus and we'll have more opportunities to mingle together in person. Let's see. So, the vast majority of our students do live on campus. So we would hope that you would choose to reside in College Park Scholars if you live on campus. But commuter students are also welcome into the program. So if you don't live on campus, you're still able to participate in Scholars. Let's see. What else can I tell you? I think one thing that's very important to keep in mind about what Scholars can add to your experience, we work really closely with students to build an intentional, coherent path through those first 2 years of undergraduate education. We don't want you to think of those first 2 years when you may not be focused as intensely on your major as just sort of checking off boxes and fulfilling requirements in general education. A lot of the supporting courses that you would be taking for your Scholars programs are going to fulfill gen ed requirements. So our hope for you is that we can help you sort of fit all of the different pieces of the first couple of years together. Our goal is to help successfully orient you into the university, into what it means to learn as a college student. Maryland is a very, very large place. Many of our students think of College Park Scholars as their sort of smaller home on the very large campus. And one of the things that I can assure you of is that you will have close relationships, both with your peers in the program, your fellow students, but also with the staff and faculty of College Park Scholars. I often say that I've been on campus at Maryland for a long, long time. I came here in 1992, and my home base before I came into Scholars was the English department. So believe me, there are lots and lots of really smart, creative, dedicated people on this campus, but you really won't find a more caring and dedicated and talented group of people than the folks that I've had the privilege of working with in College Park Scholars for the past 6.5 years. You will not just be a number in Scholars, you will be a face and a name. Our faculty members are the kind of people who come to work every single day, determined to make something wonderful happen for undergraduate students. They will lead students on service trips. They will lead students on study abroad adventures around the world. They will take students on field trips all over the Washington metropolitan area. So you will definitely not be invisible here, and you will get the kind of support and mentorship, also opportunities for internships. Some of the kinds of things that are harder to come by on a big campus in that first couple of years. So you'll have closer relationships with faculty and staff on campus than you might otherwise have if you weren't in Scholars. Scholars, I describe it as a rare and vibrant, wonderful, challenging, nurturing, diverse, and engaging place, right? We are interested in scholars in educating the whole student, the heart as well as the head. One of our mission statement, if you will, is we learn better when we learn together. So we're always very excited when we can bring together students from different departments, disciplines, and backgrounds together for the kinds of conversations that really change lives and open students' minds to different sets of possibilities. So I think you can see I'm a big fan of this place, even after 6.5 years. I've found it just a wonderful place to be. And that's because of how committed people are to supporting students and helping them to succeed, both as students and as citizens of the campus. So thank you again. I look forward to talking with you this evening and throughout this process over the next several weeks as you make your college decisions. So good luck to you, and I will pass it back to our host for the evening, Dave Eubanks.
Thanks so much, ML. A lot of great questions. Let me introduce our student panelists really quickly so we can start tackling some of these. So Sierra, Javi, and Saxon, if you guys want to turn your cameras on so we can all see you. And just really quickly, give us the Scholars Program that you're in and maybe your major, and then we'll move on to a couple questions. So let's start. Sierra.
Hi, my name is Sierra. I am a junior criminology and criminal justice major, and I was in Media, Health, and Society for 2 years.
Really important point for 2 years. Scholars is a 2-year program. That is a question that's popped up already, and we'll talk a little bit about why in a moment. Javi, say hi.
Hi, my name is Javi. I'm in the Environment, Technology, and Economy program, and I'm a landscape architecture major, and I also have a minor in sustainability.
Thank you. Saxon, bring us home, please.
Hi, my name is Saxon. I am a secondary English and education major, and I'm in the arts program.
Wonderful. I want to start with a question that's popping up a lot here, and that has to do with how you picked the program that you're in. And if you could talk a little bit about the relationship between the program and your major. Javi, you want to start us off a little bit?
Yeah, when I came to the University of Maryland, I didn't have a major yet, but I knew that I wanted to major in something related to sustainability. And so I was still kind of exploring the different majors. And I immediately knew that I wanted to join the ATE, Environment, Technology, and Economy, because it does revolve around the idea of sustainability. And I kind of got to explore different topics in sustainability and kind of see what I liked. And I think it did kind of help guide me to choose my major. So I know that it doesn't have to relate to your major, but I think for me personally, I think I just wanted to choose something that would help me with my major, choosing my major.
Thanks, Javi. This is addressing some of the questions that have come up. A lot of people will think about looking at scholars programs that are closely related to their major, which in many cases works really well. But scholars is also a way to study something else that's not your major for a couple of years, taking fewer courses and sort of expanding your experience. Sierra, tell us a little bit about how you wound up picking your scholars program and how it relates to your major, if at all.
So originally my freshman year, I was a computer science major, and I understood that with that major came a lot of science and math classes. And I thought it'd be interesting to choose a scholars program that kind of contrasted with all of those science and math classes I would have to take. But ultimately, I changed my major to criminology and criminal justice at the recommendation of one of my scholars program directors. He helped me out with that, which was really nice. And I'm much happier in my major now, but it was also really interesting because during one of my classes, we had a guest speaker come in who had recorded a podcast about, I forget what case it was, but it was about criminal activity. I thought that was really interesting. So I was able to introduce myself to her and talk to her about that specific project she'd done, which was really interesting. And so overall, my major is completely different than my scholars program, but it was a nice change of pace from all of the other classes I had to take for my major.
Thanks a bunch. Saxon, how'd you wind up in arts?
Well, that's a funny story because I don't remember putting arts on my application, but I truly believe that whoever placed me on central staff really read through my application and thought I'd be a good fit because I couldn't imagine being in any other program now. So I'm in arts by the grace of God, I guess. And I'm very happy there. And it fits in with my major because I am English education, but I didn't plan on being there, but I guess someone in central staff did. And so I'm very happy about that.
So a number of people have asked, I'm seeing there's a question about how likely you are to get in your first preference. Others are asking if you can do multiple programs. I just want to make this really clear. We take what you provide to us by February 22nd on that preference form, and we need to make sure that we're inviting the right number of people to each program. So we do look at that response where you say, this is why I think I should be in this program. And we want to make sure that the programs have some good representation across majors and across perspectives. So we very, very carefully look at all that. Students admitted to scholars and invited to a particular program do have the option of requesting a move to another program, but we want to have that conversation with you and make sure that we understand why that's something that you're interested in doing, and we kind of work with you over the next couple of months. Another question that I saw pop up pretty regularly had to do with the course load. A specific one I want to respond to is Scholars is an academic program. So we have a curriculum. You do take a course or two with other scholars every semester for those first 2 years, but it is also living with people. It is also building community. And sometimes those courses are very closely aligned with your major, and sometimes they're not. I'll sort of throw it to either of the three of you. If you want to talk a little bit about how the work that you do for your scholars classes and maybe the content of those classes are part of your undergraduate courses. How much work are they for you? How do they help you make connections? How do they kind of help you think about something other than computer science for an hour a week? Anyone want to take a shot at that?
Well, as a sophomore, I'm completing my capstone project this year for arts, and a lot of people are doing a lot of different things. Some students are trying to paint a painting, get it in a museum or something. Because I want to teach, I received permission to teach a workshop to students in my scholars class. So I get credit for teaching a course, they get credit for taking it. And it's wonderful teaching experience that I would not have gotten had I not been in scholars. And it fits into my major perfectly. And I'm getting teaching experience before I even graduate and get a job.
That's great. A thing in Saxon's response there to know is the scholars curriculum, those courses, again, that's 1 or 2 a semester, do culminate in a capstone, or what we call a practicum project. And the idea here is that by the time you're a sophomore, you're already doing a research project or an internship or a service project, which will provide you good foundation for your junior and senior years. Sierra, Javi, anything to say about how your scholars coursework fit into the rest of your curriculum?
For me, it just really fulfilled a lot of my gen ed classes that I have to just graduate overall. Additionally, some of the classes I was required to take for scholars, in addition to the regular classes I had to take for scholars, the CCPM, PMS classes, were required to take a philosophy class or classes under a certain guideline. And one of the classes I had to take was a philosophy course, and I really enjoyed that, as well as a psychology course I was required to take. I tried to add a psychology minor as a result, but unfortunately we don't have that at Maryland. But having those experiences was really great. It helped widen my worldview and just overall help me grow as a person.
Great, thank you.
I'll say something. So this is more specific to the Environment, Technology, and Economy program, but I think, well, the class revolves around sustainability, and I think sustainability is becoming more and more relevant. And I think in a lot of my classes outside of scholars, sustainability always comes up. And so I feel like I have a good background because of my scholars program. And apart from the content that we learn in Colloquium, we also have a lot of professional practice that we work on. Like we work on our resumes, and we talk about careers, and I think that just really adds on to the content, and it's really helped me a lot. So it's not all about I'm not just learning about sustainability, but we're also working on professional practice, which has really really just made the experience a lot more useful, and I'm very thankful for it.
Great. I want to take a stab at a question that I'm seeing come up a lot. I've been with scholars for a little more than 10 years, and it's a question that I've heard before. What's the difference between the Honors College and College Park Scholars? I can answer that from the perspective of scholars. So we've been around for a little more than 25 years, and Scholars was created as a way to bring together learning in the classroom with experience outside of the classroom. The idea was the best way to do that is put students in these smaller groups, ask them to take 1 or 2 courses together a semester, complementing the courses they're taking for their major, and move their way towards doing that practicum. And along the way, what they're doing is making connections between all of their courses, making connections with their peers in order to build that community and have a sense of belonging above and beyond showing up for a series of classes over the first 2 years. The Honors College, what was just University Honors for a long time, was primarily organized around offering what we think of as an honors version of regular courses. And that's what it was for a long time, until about 12, 13 years ago when the Honors College began building living learning programs. So what I can say is when Honors initiated that process, we met with them a lot because we had been doing it for 10, 15 years already. And the Honors College has certainly borrowed some of our approaches, but it's important to know that we have had as our foundation active practical learning in a community for 25 years, and that's what we continue to do. There are some honors programs that are 4 years long. Scholars is 2. In response to that question, our idea really is to launch students into very successful junior and senior years. We always have students ask why it can't be 4. They want to stay around a little bit longer. And there are many opportunities for juniors and seniors to stay involved with scholars, but that's the point at which they're done with their work and they go on to thrive in their majors. I will say that many scholars do go on to what we call departmental honors when they're done with scholars. So if you're a biology major, you might become part of the biology honors program when you're done with scholars. There are some differences between our programs. The main one is we've been doing it for 25 years, and our commitment is primarily to that active practical learning in the community. There are some other questions that are about housing. I just want to take a really quick moment to say that obviously the university and the state are still figuring out what the fall semester is going to look like. It's too early to make announcements about that. And it's even too early to know when those announcements would be made. The campus has been very proactive about COVID mitigation and protection. I can tell you right now, all of us have to have a COVID test every other week. And there's a lot of support on campus to make sure that people are getting those tests and that we're doing everything we can. When students are back on campus, Housing and Scholars is managed by the Department of Resident Life. So that is the office that will actually assign you a room. Scholars students who live on campus generally live in our 5 residential halls in the Cambridge community. Each program is in its own building. Some of the buildings have multiple programs. And our starting point is we want you living with other scholars. There are always an exception or two where we bring in, or a student is allowed to bring in a roommate who's not in scholars or vice versa. That's all driven by capacity and demand that Resident Life manages. But the starting point is we want you living together in the Cambridge community for at least that first year. I have another question to kind of put to the panelists. I'm seeing a couple questions about what the classes are like. The colloquium is generally a 1-credit course. So that means it meets for 1 hour a week. And students will go to colloquium for their first 3 semesters in scholars. And they're all a little bit different. Could you guys talk a little about the things that you do in colloquium, what it's like in your programs? Maybe Saxon, lead us off with arts. What's colloquium like?
So for arts, we would meet in the early evening, and we would talk often to guest artists. We would tour the different art libraries and art programs on campus. Right in Stamp Student Union, there's something called Studio A, where it's a student-run facility where you can take photography workshops, 3D printing workshops, all that stuff. And we just tour the different art opportunities in the community. Additionally, as part of Colloquium, we have to take field trips. So one of my field trips, I went to see Cirque du Soleil. Some people go to the National Portrait Gallery. As far as arts is concerned, it's just about broadening your appreciation for all the different kinds of arts that are in our community.
Thank you. Javi, how about Colloquium and ETE?
So Colloquium, we would also meet in the early evening. We were in the CCC, the building in the center of the Cambridge community, and it's about maybe 60 to 70 students. And classes would vary a lot. Sometimes we would have lectures, which they were all based around sustainability for my program. We would do a lot of group projects. For one of them, it was called the Connections Project, and my group worked with the Arboretum on campus. And we also had to do field trips. So I went to the Capitol building for one of those. We went to DC. That was really fun. And there are also other field trips, like you can just go hiking with some of your fellow ETE scholars. So I think it just varies a lot, and we do a lot of fun things.
Sierra?
So for my program, we talked a lot about how media affects us as a whole as a society. We spoke about fake news. We had a bunch of guest speakers within the journalism sector, a bunch of journalists, people who created podcasts. A number of professors came as well. And we went on field trips, one of which was to the museum. And we all had like a scavenger hunt list of things we were supposed to find while we were there. And overall, it was just a very conversational kind of class. My class met in the afternoon on, I believe, a Wednesday. And it was just very conversational. It was just back and forth between the teacher and the students about a topic that we would choose for that day.
The colloquium is where students in a scholars program build connections with each other, and they build connections across concepts and majors and subjects. And they meet about once a week. I saw a question about that. Mary Lee, I saw a question I want you to answer. Someone said, other than the small community that you would get, what is the advantage of scholars? You can do that, right?
Well, not just a small community, but an active, engaged, and caring community, which I think is really, our students can certainly vouch for the kind of community that they experience in scholars. So what was the question? Aside from community, what do you get? Well, I think that the opportunity to learn with students from a variety of majors, and as I said, in a lot of cases, to do some concentrated exploration in something not necessarily related to your major. That we get engineers together with environmentalists, that we get the computer people in our arts program, always makes me excited. There's a lot of freedom within scholars, I think, to do some of the things that you want to do. I mean, somebody asked over in the Q&A if it was a difficult program. You know, I don't want to say that it's not a difficult program, because you know, it's an academic program, and you know, and students will be challenged in a variety of ways. But I think that it's a program where students feel like they have the support they need in order to take certain kinds of risks. That's what I always want scholars to be for students. And so it doesn't add a significant burden for. I know students, particularly in certain majors, get very concerned. Is scholar, you know, am I going to have to take a lot of additional stuff? You don't have to take a lot of additional stuff. Most of what you take, as I said before, will fulfill general education requirements. So in that sense, I don't think it's hard, but hopefully you'll feel challenged in good ways and experience opportunities for both academic growth and sort of social development. Leadership development is also a big thing that we offer in College Park Scholars. You know, our students, you know, we have a lot of organizations and initiatives within Scholars that were started by our students. And believe me, that's always the happiest day of the week for us, when a student comes to us with some new idea. And the answer is always, it's never, nah, we can't. It's always, let's try to, what can we do to help you make this happen? So we have Scholars Promoting and Revitalizing Care, an organization that was started by students a few years ago to focus on sort of health and well-being of our students. We've got was Scholars in Action, right? Is that which to create service opportunities for students. So all of these were student-started initiatives.
I want to address a couple kind of quantitative questions that people have asked about the size of Scholars and how many classes and how many hours. So our idea is to have 12 Scholars programs with about 75 students each. We find that that's big enough where you can make lots of different kinds of connections, but small enough where you do have a sense of belonging. Someone asked about how we make it like a small college. That's the start, right? It's just a smaller group of students. So you're not sitting in a calculus lecture with 500 people wondering who you're going to study with, right? So that is part of it. Two, most scholars finish the Scholars program. And for what it's worth, scholars graduate in 4 years. Parents, family members who are on this, I love saying this, scholars graduate in 4 years at higher rates than students who are not in scholars. I'm going to infer that that's because of the great foundation Scholars provides them. The other thing to say, the very particular questions about how many courses and what the classes are. So first, this is just 1 or 2 courses a semester that you're taking with your other scholars. And if you go to our website and you look at the programs, we made this very easy to find, you can see what the curriculum is for all of these. And we've tried to put that in context. So you see that your first semester, you're taking a 1 credit colloquium, 1 hour a week, and then you're taking your other 4 or 5 major or general education courses. So Scholars is supposed to complement and be part of all that, never to overwhelm your general education or major courses. Where did it go? There was another here. Are there freshman events at the beginning of the year that are just for scholars? Yes. And there are going to be events on campus that are not just for scholars. I think Scholars actually does a pretty good job of giving students that initial community and helping them make communities outside of Scholars, belong to other organizations. I'm confident that Sierra, Hobby, and Saxon are doing more than just a Scholars program while they're here. We want to make sure that they're building those kinds of connections as well.
But can we talk about Service Day?
Yes. So go ahead.
The very first thing that Scholars students do when they get to campus in a normal year, in a non-pandemic year, We send our close to 1,000 brand new first year students out there for the first day that they wake up on campus. We send them out all across the Washington, Maryland metropolitan area to perform service at sites all over the area. It's a remarkable, both a remarkable bonding experience and a really powerful introduction to those core values of community and care that we offer to students. And I defer to our students as the kind of impression that Service Day makes upon you as an entry into the scholars community, and the kind of relationships that get established on that very first day on campus. But that's a really special initiative with a long, proud tradition. We've been doing that for about 25 years too.
We have a few minutes left, and I wonder if I could ask our panelists to talk a little bit more about this, the balance between your scholars work, your other class work, and the rest of what you do as an undergraduate student. Our aim is to make sure that scholars is part of that, and that scholars is never an impediment to everything else you're doing. So give us just a little bit on how you balance colloquium with your major classes, with organizations and focus jobs that students hold. Sierra, how about you? Can you start us?
I think I had a pretty good balance going in. It's just all about time management. I did, in addition to being in scholars and being a full-time student, I was also a supervisor at the gym at Lee Recreation Center. I've been there for 3 years now. And in addition to that, I was also on the debate team, and we traveled on the weekends to debate other students at different schools. So it's just all about time management, really. Thankfully, I did have a social life in addition to completing all of my work and all of that. I was able to time manage well enough that I could have a social life and also get enough sleep, because if I didn't get enough sleep, then I wouldn't be able to get my work done or go to work and do all the things I wanted to do. Colloquium really didn't impede my ability to do well in my other classes. In actuality, it really helped me because it was giving me a kind of break from the kind of monotonous, the monotony of having certain classes over and over again. A lot of my classes in my CCJS major are kind of repetitive. So by having the scholars classes I had to take, I was able to kind of like go away from the work I had to do for those classes and kind of think of something else at the same time. But overall, it's just about time management, knowing when you have to get things done and how they need to get done and what in a timely manner.
Thank you. Holly?
Well, I agree with Sierra that it kind of, well, for me, I'm a landscape architecture major, and I think my scholars program did also serve as kind of a break from my major, since this past fall, I started in the studio, and so we would just be working all the time, working on projects, and then scholars once a week, we would do a lot of, well, for online school, we would do breakout rooms, and we would just have good discussions. And I think it also served as a break, like Sierra said. And I was going to say something else. Can you repeat the questions that you asked? Because
That's fine. I was just asking about the balance between your scholars classes, the rest of your classes, and everything else you're doing as a student. Saxon, you want to give us an observation on that real quick?
Yeah, so as an aspiring educator, every class I'm in, I look at what the teacher's doing and I try to pick out what I like and what I don't like. At least for arts, they have managed to strike a balance between the students actually learning and being engaged, and it being in an environment where it's relatively stress-free and we all enjoy being there. I worry about going to my English class. I worry about going to my education class. I'll never, ever worry about going to my scholars class. I'm always excited to go there. I know I'm going to learn things. I know my professors know my name. I know other people in the class. If you as a student or you're a parent and you're worried about your child coming into scholars and you're worried about extra work, that should be the least of your worries, because it's just a little bit extra work for so much the opportunities you have, the connections you'll make, the people you'll meet, the programs that you are exposed to, it's totally worth it to take a colloquium 1 day a week and then do a practicum project at the end of your sophomore year, because the payoff is enormous. I cannot say enough about scholars.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
I remembered what I was going to say. I think Saxon hit on it too, but I was going to say how my director, Tim, and I think this goes for a lot of programs, but I also feel the sense of scholars just being very stress-free. Even though we do get homework and we have projects, Tim always emphasizes how he wants us to be, my director is very understanding, and he always wants to make our projects enjoyable. And if we're having too many things outside of scholars that are taking our time, I can always just go to him, and I just know that scholars will never make my life harder. It'll just make it more interesting. And I do think that everything we do is worth it for all of the opportunities that we get.
The 12 scholars programs each have their own faculty director. I've been on campus for a really long time, and there's no more caring group of faculty and instructors on campus. They're invested in their students. It's a little after 7:45. There are more questions. It looks like a number got answered, but I know that not all of them have been answered. So remember, go.umd.edu/drop-in-scholars will be the way to sign up for one of our office hours for the next couple of weeks. Continue to send us these questions. We will respond to them. We'll post this if you want to come back and rewatch it. I will maybe come back and rewatch it and really wish I could get a haircut sometime soon. Write, call, be in touch, come to our office hours. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our ambassador student panelists, Sierra, Saxon, Javi. We are in your debt. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. Mary Lee.
Dave, can you reshare the screen with that link? It is Scholars Drop In, not Drop In Scholars.
Scholars Drop In. I will reshare it. And as I do that, I will begin to wrap up for the evening.
Were you about to throw it back to me, Dave?
I was.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just want to reiterate Dave's thanks to all of our panelists, and thanks to all of you for being here. I have to admit, I am a little overwhelmed by the size of the crowd, and also delighted. We will have further opportunities, obviously, to engage with you and to answer your questions. These drop-in hours, the university is also doing open houses for admitted students. Scholars will have a session at those open houses. You're welcome to join us for those. Our programs will also be doing sessions a little further down the road. We will convey the details and logistics of those things to you as soon as they are available, and we certainly hope that you'll join us for those. I think students in particular, once you've been assigned to a particular program, you'll be interested to hear the details and meet the personnel involved. The last thing I want to say is this has obviously been a year of extraordinary challenge. But I am very, very proud of the fact that in a comment in one of our students' a sophomore surveys last spring stands out for me. I don't know, it makes me very, very proud to hear what this student had to say, that in the midst of that semester when, we had to pivot to remote learning and teaching on a dime right in the middle of the semester, the student's comment at the end of it was, "I always know that Scholars has my back." And I think that resonates in some ways with the comments from our students here tonight. That is the long and the short of it. Scholars always has its students' backs. We are present, available, proud, and happy to support our students in any way that we can. So we look forward, as I said, to working with all of you as you make your way along this journey of your college decision. We hope you'll choose Maryland. We hope you'll choose Scholars, and we hope to see you in the fall. So thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.